everyone. I'm so excited to lead this conversation for 3% conference on Taboo No More. We have Rachel, Anna, and Alissa on this call. And my name is Kenneth and I'm a sex educator that focuses on female pleasure. And I used to be a personal trainer, so I love the idea of giving people the opportunity to acquire the skills, especially when it comes to sexuality, because a lot of times people are not looking to be more informed about sex. They actually want to acquire the skills so they could have better sex. So that's where I come in. But I feel so privileged to lead this conversation because we have three powerhouse here, both changing female body's life from different stage of life. And I want to start this conversation by framing some of the struggles that we have in this industry, that why a female body is still a taboo in 2021, and talking about it and all the hurdles that we have to still overcome when it comes to advertising and messaging for our products and our project and our mission and vision. So the case that I kind of want to bring up first is there was this huge MTA lawsuit happening with Dame Product Unbound trying to do a station takeover, which is, the place that ads are over. So is a female pleasure, sexual wellness toy company. And a couple of months ago, before that, and I live in New York City, I see all their cactuses and penis all over the station selling erectile dysfunction pills from Hims, and that was totally cool. But when Dame Product and Unbound apply, they got rejected. So that is totally a discrimination, and it was a big thing in our industry. And a lot of us face difficulty, especially when it comes to censorship or being banned on social media. So I have a question for all three of you. So what type of struggle have you personally experienced that is notable for you with working in this space? So tell us a little bit about yourself and the struggle you have. I will start with Alissa.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm exactly 1 month into a brand new job running marketing at a company called Evernow, which is a startup that's dedicated to giving women what they need to feel like themselves again throughout menopause. And it's a combination of telehealth care from experts, as well as, prescriptions by mail for treatments in an ongoing way that really works. And, we invented this brand new category, and there have been all sorts of obstacles that we're hurdling over. And as you know, Facebook and Instagram sort of have an allergy to anything smacking of sexual pleasure. And when we're talking about clinical symptoms, so this is where I get to say words like vaginal dryness at a conference, because this is about taboos, and so Facebook and Instagram choked on our ads. And the broader issue is really more about the cultural taboo around menopause. Many millions of women are feeling like garbage in very serious ways, and they're suffering needlessly, in large part because we're not talking about it. And the problem with taboo is it makes even the most benign boogeyman even bigger and more scary. And it winds up leading to have a more menacing grip on you, when you can't call it out and talk about it, it looms much larger and you feel like you're all alone in a thing. And so, the more we talk about things, the more you realize literally every woman, 55 million women in the United States right now are experiencing menopause, that there's no reason for the suffering and there's no reason for the silence and the isolation.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. I'm the co-founder and head of engineering of Lioness. We're a female sexual wellness startup, and we built the first and only smart vibrator that helps people learn about their bodies through biofeedback data. So you get biofeedback data on your orgasms and arousal. And the reason we do it is there's really, really limited research around female sexual function and female sexual pleasure. Most of it actually driven by taboo and just cultural stigma. And so just limitations, I think, in technology. And we're just trying to give people the tools to kind of learn about their own bodies in their own terms, at their own homes. But then also we work with researchers and doctors to expand the research around this space. let's see, I do have a notable obstacle. I think we've been around for about 7 years as a company. And, as Alissa was saying, like Instagram, Facebook is very, very scared of sexual wellness, especially I think when it comes to female sexual wellness. Erectile dysfunction stuff always has no problem getting around in advertising. But I will say, so one time we tried to get clever and we tried to do a bus ad in San Francisco where we had a bunch of bus stop ads. And it was very much when we pitched them and they were like, oh, I think we could do it. And then you could tell there was internal conversation and coming back being like, okay, you can do it, but you can only show 1/3 of the vibrator only. And we're like, which 1/3 and why is it 1/3? And you could just tell they're coming up with the policies as they go. And we try to be like, hey, we don't want to use the word women. We want to use the word people with vaginas. Can we do that? And they're like, no, you cannot put the word vagina on the ads and things like that. So I think it's really interesting, really all to say, sometimes culture just moves way faster than companies or policies can, and especially in spaces where maybe there's not enough representation or just understanding of where the shift is really going. And so that's always my favorite one. We did do the ads, but they were definitely, no one could tell what we were possibly advertising. So it was good lessons learned for us back then.
Rachel, tell us a little bit more about your story and the struggle that you have experienced.
Yeah, so thank you again for having me. I am such a huge, huge fan of the 3% conference, and I'm so happy to be sharing a stage with all of you. Thank you so much. I am the co-founder and CEO of Moons, which is a new modern femme care company that's out to change the language, experience, and conversation around menstrual cycles and all cycles of a woman's life. We have, as many of us have mentioned with our own companies, women's bodies, women's cycles, women's experiences are still so highly tabooed and stigmatized and dark and mysterious. And we want to be the brand that completely shifts the culture from an experience that is considered the curse to something that is actually acknowledged as your superpower, because that's what a menstrual cycle is. It is a superpower. So our first product, Duets, is a first of its kind tampon plus liner system. And that's just out to solve one of the initial problems around menstrual cycles, which is the leaks and the stains, because then that halos out to a bigger cultural problem of embarrassment and anxiety and stress that comes from those leaks and stains. So we're starting with practical solutions to provide superior protection, but the real mission and heart and soul of the brand is to completely shift the culture, and so that every generation coming into her menstrual cycle will be excited about it, empowered by it, and will actually celebrate it and respect it. And this is not just a women's issue, it is a people issue, and it's something that we want the whole culture to be able to have a comfortable conversation about. Many struggles in these early days. We haven't started paying for advertising yet, but we already know what our roadblocks and limitations are. For example, the biggest one is you cannot show menstrual blood on airways, print, TV, out of home, social, anywhere, nowhere. Yet you can show any other sort of blood, particularly from violence, rape, domestic abuse, murder, guns, all of the other terrible cultural problems that we are not addressing, yet we can't show the most beautiful natural form of our body's blood in menstrual form. So that is a huge, huge roadblock for advertising. That's what the blue goo was created, to not be able to show blood. And to not show real life experiences. I think talking about a leak and stain from a woman who is suffering from these moments is the most instant relatable content that we can create, yet we can't show a woman who's got a blood stain on her pants. So lots of challenges set ahead for us, but we're willing and able to go and try to conquer them all.
Thank you, Rachel. So the next question is a little bit more personal. And to start this conversation, I know what it's like to overcome my own sexual insecurity. And I used to be a fitness professional, and I don't know, somehow I managed to become a sex educator and a sex hacker. And it was a very difficult conversation to tell my Chinese mom about what I decided to do. And I was really nervous for a while. So I am sure you have your own story about overcoming those challenges to do what you do. So tell us a little bit about what you have to personally overcome in order to do what you do? And why is that important to you, Alissa?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about coming to realize like the magnitude of the suffering that people are experiencing in menopause. Again, it's like 55 million women. This is anywhere from 5 to 10 years. These are like serious experiences that they're having. And, you know, the more I looked into it, the more I heard stories from friends about things like, you know, well, I haven't slept in years and I'm growing cannabis on my porch to try to see if it can help. And I can't think straight anymore, so I'm going to quit my job, or I'm dreading having sex with my partner because it just hurts so much. And, you know, millions of people don't need to have these problems. There are solutions, and then there are taboos around the solution. So hormones has been one of those boogeyman words that have come to stand for like cholesterol is a boogeyman word. You know, hormones can help 80% of women feel better. And for most people, they're perfectly safe and medically indicated. And, you know, there's no reason why there's so much suffering. And that is just a thing that helped me get over this like menopause. I'm going to be like the CMO for a menopause startup, to feel like, well, of course I'm going to be the CMO for a menopause startup. Like, what could be cooler than that? You know, and, you know, and then the more you talk about it, the more comfortable it gets. And, you know, I've been sort of blown away. I feel like, if anything, it's been so well received that I feel like a hero, like I'm flying around like a hero with the menopause solution for so many people. So I guess it comes down to sort of tapping into what you really care about.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, Kenneth, I identify so much with your story too. As I grew up in Korea till I was like around 6 and moved to the US. And my parents, it was very much this idea of like bringing us for better opportunity, American dream. So I was actually a mechanical engineer at Amazon. So I really didn't think I wanted to be an entrepreneur, or especially in the sex tech industry. Like none of that was in my like, oh, like that's my dream. I really wanted to just stay in like Amazon, be a really good mechanical engineer. And I always tell people this because I feel like it's very important, because I do these like talks and stuff now. And I'm actually on TikTok doing like things I've learned about sex and just like talking about all the information, all the research around this space. This was it's been a 7-year journey for me. I was really scared of my own body well into my mid-20s. I was very much like, I don't want to talk, I don't want to do any interviews. I don't want to say the word like clitoris, orgasms, like all that stuff freaked me out. Like I had a hard time just like talking to my partners and communicating, you know, all through my life. And so for me, it's really proven the point of like, the more we actually learn about our bodies and the more we're able to have these conversations, it just normalizes this whole idea of like, sex can just be sex. Like it can be something that's pleasurable, but it's also something that helps you learn about your body. Like, and it's just about like feeling good about your own body and just being like, oh, I know that if I drink a cup of coffee, it makes my orgasms better. And like, here's the data for it. Like, to me, like it gave me tools to have those conversations, which is why I'm just personally so in the belief of like, you know, my parents now know what I do for a living, and they weren't super excited about it at first, but I think definitely just seeing my like passions makes them feel like, okay, like she's got this handled. And so I'm very much in the space of like, I think knowledge really is power, and we really hope to like give that to people. And like, so yeah, so I always tell people like, trust me, if you met me 7 years ago, like this is not the same person that you would have met.
That's awesome. And Rachel?
Gosh, I love hearing all of your stories. They're so cool. And there's such a commonality and common thread between all of our stories, is that we just really want to make the experience better for people, because we've all been suffering silently for so long. So my personal journey, I also never ever thought, if you had asked me 10 years ago if I would be a founder of a femtech company, I would laugh. There's no way. Though the origin of Moons is really that I had been dreaming of better period protection my whole life, since my first moon. I was a very heavy flow bleeder. I was an athlete and a gymnast and was always suffering from these really awful moments. And because culturally it's a taboo topic, I didn't feel comfortable talking even to my sisters and my mom, who I'm very close with, and definitely not my dad or any of the male coaches that were kind of ever present in my life. And so it kind of year over year, decade over decade, became a product that I wished existed for a culture shift that I was desperately yearning and craving. And then as you get into, a grown adult, you start to realize that menstrual cycles need to be talked about more because they are a metric to your overall health. And you don't have you shouldn't have painful periods. You shouldn't, there's all these experiences that we've all kind of been silently suffering from. And it takes a village and a people who are willing to be vulnerable and share their transparent, honest lived experiences that actually starts to accumulate and cultivate a whole new level of education and information. You should be able to have these comfortable conversations with your medical care provider, your partner, your parent, the closest people in your life. And we don't yet. We're getting there, but we don't yet. And so for me, I had definitely a record scratch moment in my personal career where like people were like, what, I don't understand, you're leaving a very successful, thriving career that you love to jump literally into trench warfare of startup life. No salary, every day is hard. So many, everything you have to figure out. Like it's just hard. And then fundraising is really hard. And what makes fundraising conversations so relevant to this one is that 10 years ago, the 3% conference started because there was less than 3% female representation on the creative teams and advertising. And now still in 2021, there is less than 3% of VC dollars go to female founders. So we have a long, long, long way to go as far as getting people to invest in female founders, especially in female founders that are doing things for female bodies. These are things that we are so far behind on, and we have a long, long way to go, but we need people to step up to the cause and invest in women and invest in female founders and invest in education and resource around our bodies and our experiences. So that's what I have tasked myself to do. And I'm very excited about building this company. And the hope and dream is so that we can have first mooners enter this with their first moon kit and be really excited about it and put it on TikTok and talk about it and be excited about their bodies and what they're growing into.
All three of you are absolutely amazing. Your willingness to kind of overcome that personal journey in order to do what you do is so remarkable. And I want to end this conversation with a very positive note. So what I learned is the birthing community actually got Instagram to change their community guidelines so they could post birthing in its natural form and without any censorship. So I want to ask you all, what type of changes do you want to see in the space, and what type of cultural shift do you want to see happen in our lifetime? Alissa?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can take a lesson from the movement and culture now to talk about these things and start there. The only way we can take these things on and make change is to first face them and label them and talk about them together. And then what that enables us to do is, in my space, it's sort of facing up to the ways that the world is failing women around menopause, right? So the medical system is failing women because doctors don't have the training they need around menopause, and research falls short because it's done on male bodies, which are different. And hormones are misunderstood, and there are like a million flavors of things to get a hard on, but nothing that's going to help you when your estrogen levels plummet, right? So we need research. And then society and media is failing women by telling them that they're old when this happens, when the reality of it is most women are in their 40s and 50s, and they're going to live, for the first time, this generation will be in menopause longer than they will not be in menopause. And that's extraordinary. And so, it's not an old lady thing. It's a thing that happens right smack in the middle of a really big life. And you better feel like yourself so that you can make the most of the life that you have, And then the last thing I would say is that, like women are failing themselves by accepting the fact that they have to suck it up. They don't have to suck it up, so they can talk about it. They can take advantage of solutions. They can demand change. And I think that's what we're looking for.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, Alissa, I 100% agree with you too. I think it goes beyond culture of like, it's in the medical communities, it's in the research communities. We're missing so much information about female bodies because of a lot of stigma and taboos around that. If I can really have a magic wand to be like, this is what I'd like to see tomorrow, I think it really is like, I really am in the belief that the culture is already shifting, right? Like when we started, the term sex tech didn't exist, and as a term, and now we see it, and now we see so many people like coming into this community, into companies. Like I think it's amazing to see, and you see it in just like people wanting to learn more information on like TikTok and just craving to get understanding around their bodies. So really my magic wand wish would be to like I think companies just need to move more quickly on how policies change. And I especially I'm kind of directing it towards like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, kind of those things. Like it is still such a we're not able to advertise. And I think even if we come from an educational standpoint or just trying to teach people about their bodies or what we know, like we can't do that. And so I really like to see like people that should be there to talk about how the policies should change, like what that should look like. There's so many amazing thought leaders in this space that I can't imagine we can come up with a policy that still keeps, people safe, and it keeps, like the ages and all of that, like appropriate. But I think there's so much shift that needs to happen that we're just not getting the chance to really speak up about in front of these like executives and things like that.
Thank you, Anna. Rachel?
Yeah, this is a positive note to end on, because I do also believe that the culture is shifting and that people are creating great work and telling bold stories. Frida's another campaign that I always reference about their postpartum and breastfeeding work and all of the work that we're all collectively doing and having these difficult conversations. But the goal is to make uncomfortable conversations comfortable. So my wish is that, and hope is that, advertisers, creative directors, clients, everybody responsible for putting these images and these stories out there in the world, challenge themselves to do bold work, to do honest work, transparent work. We don't need to make things cute or pretty. We need to make them honest and real. And that's my challenge to the advertising industry and also the FCC. Their censorship guidelines are old school and they need to be modernized and updated. And we should be able to show these experiences in a way that, again, makes people feel safe and comfortable, but is also educating them and informing them in a way, because candy coating real life is not benefiting our culture or our society. So we just need to kind of make these shifts collectively all together. So the same way that Thinks and Cora and Dam and Fur got together to do a New York Times ad about the abortion laws, we all need to collectively put our heads and resources and minds together to do something powerful, to challenge these old school policies and old school structures and rules and guidelines. It's time for women to get our spotlight. So thank you all for the work that you do, and let's work together. Call me, email me, follow me. Let's do something together.
I think I'm super lucky that I get a little bit more time for one more questions. And before we started this conversation, before our recording, really talking about getting us to join together to really fight this fight and potentially change some of the policy, and to have from menopause to period to sex tech to sex education, how can we band together to create the change that we want to do. So this is also a call to action. I think we should really form a group, a lobby to fight for what's important. And I want to ask you one more question. What type of work, what advice do you have for new entrepreneur, young women coming into the space and want to do this work? What advice do you have for them? Alissa?
I mean, I think it's about having the courage to tap into what you care about most, no matter what. and to listen to that and follow it, even if it seems like a thing that is scary or taboo or high risk or whatnot. And the more you tap into that place of caring and that little voice that's like, oh, I couldn't do that, like the more you nurture that, that side of you, the more energy you have to do good work, the more creativity you have, the more joy and meaning that work brings your life.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, I mean, I think first to just put it off of like it's a tough journey. Like I won't make sugarcoat like, oh, entrepreneurship's so fun, like all of these things. There's a lot of challenges I think you'll go through in the span of, creating a company. And I think my biggest advice is really like find good people. I think like your team is going to make or break your company, and find people that believe in your passion or like your mission and you're all aligned to it. Like I think that's really the thing that's like really kept us going for 7 years, because there's so many times where things don't work or we get no's and all of these things, and you're like, how are we going to make this work? But I think everyone on the team was so willing to kind of be like, dude, let's just think about this in a totally different way. Let's think of like, how do we go around this and find people that are going to have fun with it. So we've always kind of found cheeky ways to like go around some of the rules, or when people tell us no, we're like, okay, well, let's figure out what makes it a yes. And so yeah, find really good people, I think, in your group, and that are going to make you stay passionate and then also just have fun with it.
Thank you, Anna. Rachel?
Yeah, so for me, I had this idea for Moons actually back in 2012, when there wasn't a single startup, there was no organic brands, femtech was not a word, direct to consumer subscription models were not a thing. And that was, if I had done this then, it would have been a totally different story, but I was afraid. And I was scared to leave a career and a paycheck. And I was so afraid of all the risks that entrepreneurs take. And it was just something that I just kept thinking about on the side and working on nights and weekends. But I think the biggest piece of feedback that I can share is my personal experience with it was I never stopped talking about Moons. Like everybody in my life knows that I've been talking about Moons since 2012. I would talk about it any opportunity I got, any time I would talk about it. And it wasn't until 2019 where I was talking about it casually with one of my old clients, and he was like, why aren't you doing it? And he was really like, that was a moment where I asked myself that question, like, why not? Am I just going to keep talking about this for 20 more years? So the feedback is keep talking about it, talk about it in every situation, every opportunity you can, because you might find that person that will inspire you or motivate you or help you or give you the resource that you need to actually take the step to building something. So if you have an idea, move, talk, dream, and then act. And that's how it was for me.
Thank you, Rachel. It's been an absolute privilege to host this conversation. Thank you, 3% Conference. And I hope you all enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Kenneth.
you.
Thanks, Kenneth.